Good day, Kavibal, and welcome to our Learn at Home Facebook Live. For the discussion today, the topic will be on introducing design thinking to our learners. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, Kavibal! And now, to proceed with our webinar this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. Jejomar Bongat, commonly known to his students and colleagues as Sir Jejo, is designated as Special Science Teacher 2 at the Philippine Science High School main campus. He handles the selected topics in engineering elective for grades 11 and 12 students, and he also used to teach probability and statistics to grade 9 students under the PSHS 6-year curriculum. He graduated from the University of the Philippines Diliman with a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering and has completed the academic coursework for the Master of Science degree of the same specialization. His research interests include optimization, simulation, and system dynamics. He is currently enrolled in a Master in Learning and Teaching program of the De La Salle University Brother Andrew Gonzalez College of Education. Prior to joining the education sector, he had experience as a management consulting analyst and a sales data analyst for two reputable multinational companies. This allowed him to bridge the gap between theory and practice, and he uses this to his advantage in developing instructional innovations and fostering an innovation culture. He has attended and delivered various workshops on a wide array of topics, including but not limited to design thinking, system dynamics, and resource optimization. One of his key aspirations is to be able to apply his engineering and innovation background in improving learning experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Mr. Jejomar O. Bongat.
Hello po, good evening po ulit sa ating lahat. So, for the third part of our webinar series under the Vibal Learn at Home, the Enhancing Learning Experiences Through Design Thinking webinar series, ngayong gabi pag-uusapan po natin ngayon kung paano po natin i-introduce ang design thinking sa ating mga learners, kung paano po nila ito pwede magamit sa kanilang learning experiences. So, muli, magandang gabi. Ako po ay si Jejomar or Jejo Bongat. Isa po akong guro sa Philippine Science High School main campus. Nagtuturo po ako ng elective na selected topics in engineering. At saka nag-aaral rin po ako ngayon sa De La Salle University ng Master in Learning and Teaching. So, para sa gabing ito, ang objective po natin sana ay makapag-explore tayo ng iba't ibang paraan. Well, I will focus siguro on two methods or two ways to introduce design thinking to our learners. Pero balikan po muna natin kung ano po ba talaga ang design thinking. So, ang design thinking, based from our first two sessions, the past two Fridays, pwede po natin siyang sabihin bilang isang interdisciplinary and integrative problem-solving methodology. So, hindi po siya ginagamit ng isang certain discipline lamang tulad ng engineering or product development. It is an interdisciplinary process na nagagamit po at nagumagamit ng mga creative minds ng mga tao mula sa iba't ibang walks of life. And it is modular and non-linear by nature. So, kung aaralin po natin itong dalawang diagram dito sa ating slide, yung first diagram illustrates the 5 phases of design thinking, which is to empathize, which means to walk in the shoes of our target users or our intended audience. And then to define, what are we going to define? The problem. So ilalatag natin kung ano yung problem na kailangan ma-solve. And then to ideate or to think of ideas on how to solve the problem that has been defined. And then we also prototype wherein we develop drafts, kumbaga, in layman's terms, to these solutions for us to be able to eventually test them and gather feedback for further improvement. If we are going to look at design thinking, it is really a non-linear process kasi pwede mo siyang gawin na sunod-sunod. You empathize, and then you define, and then you ideate, and then you prototype, and finally you test. But at the same time, pwede mo rin siyang gawin na patalon-talon ka, pabalik-balik ka. Kasi, for example, when you prototype, you might end up thinking of new ideas on how to address or solve the problem that has been defined. When you test, same can happen. Or when you test, you can identify another problem that may arise out of this situation. Or maybe even you can gain much more insights with regard to your target users. Pero siguro po, to summarize the first 2 Fridays that I spent with you in Vibal Learn at Home, maybe here are some key reminders and notes on design thinking. First is demonstrating empathy. So when we demonstrate empathy, we put ourselves in the shoes or in the setting of our intended users. And we set aside our own assumptions to gain the insight into the users, our intended audience, and their needs. And then next is defining the problem clearly. So we should have a clear understanding of what needs to be addressed. We have to be practical and pragmatic in our efforts. Hindi yung kung ano lang ang makita natin yun agad. Dapat may focus tayo in the sense na we have to understand what we are going to really solve. And then we have to be able to align the problem to the needs and the wants of the intended users. Kasi may ma-identify nga tayong problem, pero hindi naman siya aligned sa needs and wants ng ating intended users, the problem and eventually the solution, it might not make much sense for our intended audience. Next is solving the problem iteratively. So we develop ideas, we prototype, we test the solutions, but this does not end. The testing does not end the design process. We have to reiterate, get the feedback from our testing process, and the reiteration will lead to improvements. And underlying all these 3 key reminders is the reminder that design thinking ideally is a collaborative and cooperative process. Mas madali po na makabuo tayo ng mga ideas if we are working with people, with other people of diverse backgrounds and cultures even, because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So, ayun po. And to summarize naman po, the second talk that I delivered last Friday naman, as teachers in demonstrating empathy, we have to be able to understand our learners, our environment, and even ourselves. Next is that when we define the problem clearly, we have to be able to identify the concerns of our learners, the constraints we have to work with, and as teachers, what do we need to work on or improve upon. And solving the problem iteratively, it involves brainstorming with involved parties, we prototype and we pilot ideas, and then we regroup rather, and we adjust as we go along. So next is the reminder again that design thinking is a problem-solving approach. And as educators, gusto po nating lahat. I am quite confident to say that we all want our learners to be enabled and empowered to develop, and not just develop, practice and exercise higher order thinking skills. And design challenges are very good exercises in developing these higher order thinking skills in various contexts. So, if we go back to the first webinar, we remember the concept of the how might we questions under the ideation. And this is something I want to lay down on the table for all of us to think about after discussing what design thinking is about, and after discussing how we can innovate our teaching practices on using rather design thinking as a guide or as a framework. Now, our next question can be, how might we make design thinking relevant to our learners? And in the interest of time, I can focus on two top of the head thoughts that I realized. We can encourage design thinking as students, especially in the high school level, go on research and investigation projects, or in the senior high school, maybe an entrepreneurship. So we will go back through the five hexagons over and over again in the next few minutes. Kasi aaralin natin kung paano natin magagamit ang design thinking and hihimayin natin by phase or by stage. So, design thinking in research and investigation. Ang design thinking, pwede natin gamitin as a guide when we develop and eventually answer research questions. Research questions are derived and developed out of empathy, hopefully. That's the ideal case. Bakit? Kasi mas practical at mas realistic ang ganitong research questions. Kapag practical siya, realistic siya, even relatable to our learners will eventually take more ownership over the process of research and investigation. So how do we do this? Paano natin ma-establish yung parallel ng research and investigation sa design thinking process? Just to give a heads up, I will once again explain this in a linear fashion, but may I remind everyone in this webinar that the design thinking process can be non-linear and is highly iterative by nature. So una, in empathizing. When you empathize in a research or an investigation, we have to be able to identify practical and realistic concerns that are being experienced by accessible end users. Ano po ba ang ibig sabihin natin dito ng accessible na end user? Ang accessible na end user is someone na madaling makakommunicate ng ating learners. We understand, hopefully, na yung learners natin ay may certain constraints, especially now in the time of the pandemic, na hindi sila mobile. We can assume that they are not mobile. We can assume that most of their interactions with other people are through media and internet, and it might be difficult for them, even more so now, to reach out to maybe complete strangers or at least people whom they cannot easily relate with. Kaya linagay ko po dyan yung term na accessible. Because regardless if we limit, so quote-unquote limit, the connections to those whom the learners can easily access, the people that the learners can easily access, these potential end users or these potential target audiences, still have very much valid, practical, and highly pressing realistic concerns that a research problem or an investigation can address. And then in defining the problem, this is where gaps in existing knowledge are determined. We are not going to implore our learners to focus on the novelty. Hindi pa po natin siguro, maybe it's not the right time for them to be in a high school level doing investigative projects or research projects to immediately push for complete novelty at this point, especially in the time of distance and remote learning in the midst of a pandemic. But it's still nice to be able to define what is done, what are the gaps in existing knowledge, so that the learners can have a better orientation or a better focus on what they can eventually do. Afterwards, when we ideate, we assess the solutions that already exist. Identify, ano na ba yung nagawa? What has been done? Ano yung pwede pang gawin or what can be done? And Given what has been done, what can be capitalized upon? Ano yung pwedeng gamitin bilang puhunan or more appropriately bilang springboard to develop more ideas? And then in prototyping, yung ideas should be brought to life to develop solutions for evaluation and testing. These prototypes, hindi naman kinakailangan na tangible yung prototypes na to. Kasi nagva-vary naman to sa context ng research or ng investigation. It can need prototypes that are physical and tangible, but it can need other forms of prototypes, several of which like the mind map or the storyboard, I have already discussed in the first webinar. So pwede po nating balikan yun. And finally, in testing, we evaluate the solution to determine our future action steps. So pwede tayong bumalik into an earlier part of the research or the design thinking process to recalibrate, regroup, and focus on improving the entire research or the investigation. And actually, pwede nating itapat itong phases na to sa mga typical parts ng ating mga research output. So the empathy comes in the introduction of the project as well as the significance of the study. The problem definition is in the scope and limitations and will be supported by the literature review. Ideation is also supported by the literature review, and then the development of the ideas will come in further as the methodology is developed or written. In prototyping, it's still part of the methodology, but mostly this is the actual implementation of the research or in the investigation. And I am not talking about research just in a STEM context. I am talking about research in any and all contexts that are possible. Kasi marami naman tayong pwedeng pag-applyan nito. Again, design thinking is not just for a specific field. Design thinking is an interdisciplinary practice. And collaboration will make it more meaningful and fruitful. And finally, in testing, we have results and discussion, conclusion, and recommendations. So, I hope we can see, sana nakikita po natin kung paano nagtutugma-tugma ang mga bahagi ng research paper sa design thinking process. Hindi siya perfect fit. Hindi ko i-insist na perfect fit siya. Pero may opportunity to integrate. At yun lang pwede nating gawan ng mas masaganang meaning and purpose para sa ating mga learners. Another one is design thinking and entrepreneurship. Hindi po ako nakapagturo ever ng entrepreneurship, pero the thought of product development, I think pasok na pasok po siya sa entrepreneurship. So it can be used as a method of identifying and assessing what can be introduced into the market. Design thinking, like it's similar pa rin sa concept ng design thinking in research and investigation. Pero sa entrepreneurship, pwede nating ipasok dito yung design thinking para malaman ng mga learners natin alin ba na mga potential innovations or products or services na pwede nating i-offer ang may demand. So, the introductions of the new products into the market, if these are grounded on empathy, these tend to lead into easier and more successful adoption. So, kapag titingnan ulit natin itong 5 hexagon na to, in empathy work, we identify the target customers, their needs, and their wants. Ano ba yung gusto nila? Ano yung kailangan nila? At sino ba sila to begin with? Afterwards, we define the problem of the target customers. Ito yung makakatulong sa atin sa product development process. Bakit importante na ma-define natin yung problem with respect to the target customers? Kasi kapag hindi naman concern or hindi problem ng target customer ang ina-address ng solution or ng product na i-offer at ng isang starting entity, hindi po magiging relevant sa pananaw at sa paningin ng target users or target customers at hindi po mag-grow yung product sa market. In ideation, ganun din po, we assess what solutions to the customer's problem already exist to identify again kung ano yung nagawa, ano yung pwede pang gawin, at ano yung pwede nating i-improve further. Sa prototyping, mas tangible po siguro yung mga prototypes na makukuha natin from this kind of exercise. But these can also be services eh. Hindi naman porket entrepreneurship product lang, tangible product lang ang ino-offer natin. Ideally, we should also empower our students to explore the opportunity of offering services as solutions, as innovations that they can bring forward into the market. So, pwedeng maging process map, service blueprints, again, mind map, storyboard, marami namang iba't ibang forms na pwedeng i-take ang prototype. And ang testing, we evaluate the solution to determine the future action steps. Tulad nga po ng usual practice natin, regardless of whether we apply this in our teaching practices, whether our students will use this in research, whether we will use this in investigative projects, or maybe even in the context of entrepreneurship and business cases. So what is common with research and investigation and entrepreneurship? I guess the most common theme between those two is innovation. And if we push for innovation, we can ask ourselves, how might we foster a culture of innovation in our classes? Paano ba natin gagawing innovative ang mindset ng mga learners natin? Because innovation is the pinnacle of higher order thinking skills. We do not just evaluate, we create. And when we create, we innovate. So we go back to these design mindsets. Similar po ito sa present ko ng first webinar natin, pero I realigned it a bit more for better student-centered ownership. So the learner should ideally be self-aware, or the designer for that matter should be self-aware, strengths and weaknesses. Focusing on values, not just their own personal values, but also those of the target users or the target audience. Recognize differences. This is very critical in empathy work. There may be several differences between the learner or the designer's perspectives sa perspectives ng target audience or target users niya. And of course, we should also embrace complexity. Hindi pwede na, ay mahirap, ay napaka-complex, ayoko na. In fact, this will allow the learner, or in this case, a designer, to identify how they can grow. It is also very essential for our learners to be collaborative in nature, to build trust with each other and to the people they work with, to proactively experiment and find ways on how to develop better solutions, and to share ideas, of course, in a humble manner, receptive to criticism, of course, constructive dapat, and receptive as well to building their idea being built upon. Now, just before I end, our learners are bound to encounter obstacles and they will highly likely experience failures as they go through the design thinking process in various settings. So, as teachers, as the educators, alalay tayo. This might be a difficult experience for our learners. But at the same time, we should be able to process our learners with these tips. And interestingly, these tips are also the tips I shared towards the end of my session for educators last week. Design thinkers are free to regroup, recalibrate, reiterate, and try again. So as educators, what is our role in fostering this? Ideally, we should not be punishing them for their failures or the setbacks that they encounter if they apply design thinking in their research, in their investigation, in their entrepreneurship project. Because as design thinkers, we iterate and iterate and iterate to succeed. So, bigyan natin sila at i-empower natin sila to go back to the drawing board, to regroup, to recalibrate, to try again. Because an attempt at developing an innovation, whether it is a successful one or not, it is a very meaningful learning experience. And as educators, ito po, malalim po hugot ko nito bilang estudyante pa lang ako noon. As an educator, I always valued those teachers who helped me process yung mga failures ko, shortcomings ko, and who helped me realize that I will learn a lot from these, even though they are classified as a negative event. These still have a lot of positive consequences that will be beneficial to our learners as they grow. So an attempt at developing an innovation, whether successful or not, we should be able to let our learners realize that it is a meaningful learning experience. And with that, maraming salamat po, magandang gabi, at pakisuportahan po nating lahat ang Viva Learn at Home na mayroon pong academic books, test booklets, activity sheets, supplements, at kahit po teach at home guide. Kung may tanong po kayo, pwede nyo po akong i-contact gamit ang email address na nasa slide. Muli maraming salamat po sa pakikinig and have a good evening. Happy weekend po sa ating lahat. Thank you po!
Good day, Kavibal, and welcome to our Learn at Home Facebook Live. For the discussion today, the topic will be on introducing design thinking to our learners. Before we begin, take note of the following reminder.